It is Thursday morning, September 21st. Today should have been the last day of your MAP testing. If you did not finish all 4 of your assessments, then please make sure you get those done. Check in with myself or Ms. Christensen and let us know what we can help you do to get those finished. So for today, you are going to need this page, which I marked it. This came in the file that I sent that said completed notebook pages. This one was already colored in for you. I know. If you like to color, then you could definitely color over the letters, do lots of other things. It also has this page that goes with it that has all of the text already in there because there's a ton of writing. On Tuesday, I asked you to ask your learning coach to see if you could find this book. So hopefully you were able to find your classifications book that came in your K-12 science kit. And hopefully you were able to take a look through it. It has some incredible pictures in it. Lots of close-ups, especially talking about some of the eubacteria and the protists. Some great technical drawings of some of those different things. So definitely make sure you find this one. And then you'll need your science notebook as well. Today's class won't be as long as Tuesday's class. We're just going through one little section today. But it is a really important section, and I want you to have plenty of time to think through what we're talking about. Okay, so let's get started. Grab your notebook, and we'll get going. Okay, so I have, this one is set up just like the one from Tuesday, where you cut the page that you've written that has all the writing on it, on the black lines. This page gets glued into your notebook. Then you cut the black lines on this, which means you're going to cut these little flaps as well. And then you will put a blob of glue down the middle here. And this one goes on top of that one. And that way your little flip flaps open and close so you can see the information underneath. Remember, if you don't have a printer, my suggestion is that you, at the very least, save these files somewhere, because you do have a book that goes with this section, but it doesn't have everything in it you need. So it's nice if you have an extra set of things you can look back over when it comes time for the test. So looking at our 6 kingdoms of life, which we talked about a little bit on Tuesday, we said that there are 6 basic groups that we can sort living things into. We said that we've got Archaebacteria, we have Eubacteria, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Oops, sorry. Let's see. There we go. We kind of got them all in there. So let's start here with our Archaebacteria. And we did talk about this on Tuesday. So I tried to handwrite this in here, and quite frankly, I got frustrated because there was no way I could fit everything in there. So I just made some bullet points. You have the one that's already pre-typed, so it has everything in there. And it talks about this being, the name Archaea means ancient things, because they often lived in conditions that resemble Earth 3.5 billion years ago. And it says they're prokaryotes, and they can be found in harsh environments like extreme salt, heat, cold, and acid, but can also be found in normal locations as well. Most antibiotics do not affect organisms of this kingdom due to the way they synthesize proteins. They are considered most closely related to eukaryotes than bacteria. This is really important here. This not affected by antibiotics. This means if this kind of bacteria is harming something and we need to try and get rid of it, we can't always use antibiotics for it. We have to find other ways to fight this sort of bacteria. So this is, and like I said, these guys are, they can be just about anywhere. So these guys are they're very hard to get rid of. Very hardy little species. Well, they're not a species. I should use correct terminology. They are a very, very hardy kingdom of life. Now, let's go over here. Every time I see this, it makes me think of Plankton from SpongeBob. I don't know why, something about the shape of, I don't have any idea. But every time I see it, I think of Plankton. This is eubacteria, and it is found in the domain of bacteria. So think back to those categories that we looked at, that whole thing about Dear King Philip. So if we looked in the domain, it would fall under bacteria. And these are called everyday bacteria because we can find them just about anywhere. They come in 3 shapes. They can be in spheres, spirals, or in little rods. They can also be associated with diseases. But they can also be helpful as well. So this is a kind of bacteria, and this bacteria is actually being experimented with right now when it comes to oil spills, because they're trying to work out a way where this bacteria will actually feed on the oil, and it's a certain species of this bacteria, that it will actually feed on the oil. So if there's a huge oil spill, they can release this kind of bacteria into the ocean, wherever that oil spill might be, and these little guys would sort of clean it up. So that's something that scientists are looking at. But these can be helpful. They can also be harmful as well. Once again, it's a bacteria, so I do, this kind of stuff definitely helps protect us from these little guys as well. Okay, over here, these are Protista. And these can either be plants, they can be plant-like or animal-like or even fungus-like. So they can actually resemble one of these 3 down here, kingdoms of life. They can be any of those. They're found in the domain of eukaryotes. They're eukaryotic, and their cell contains a nucleus. So that's a big deal, is these each have a nucleus in them. So all of those cell things that we have talked about are found in each of these cells. If it has a nucleus, then it has all of that stuff in it that we've talked about over the last few weeks. They can reproduce in lots of different ways, and they can move using lots of little different, like the little tail here. They can move using the tail. The little hair things around them can help them move. So these guys can move around in lots of different ways. So it's a very big group, but they can reproduce, so they can become a problem quickly because they just keep multiplying. All right, so let's go on to the kingdom of fungi. This includes yeast, mold, mushrooms. They're eukaryotic. They can be single or multi-celled. They absorb their food. They reproduce by spores, which spores actually go through the air a lot of times. So mushroom spores can actually get in the air and go from one mushroom and land in the ground, and can grow another mushroom somewhere else. So once again, these things can also, if you've ever dealt with mushrooms in your yard, they can spread very easily, but it also includes yeast and mold. These are really helpful in recycling decaying materials because they absorb their food. When these little cells, I'm trying to think of how to say this without being gross. Think about when you see an animal that's been hit on the side of the road and it's no longer alive. Well, we know that eventually over time that animal is going to decompose. These guys here are decomposers, and they actually help break down a lot of that material, and they absorb food from it and break it down. So fungi have a really important job as well in recycling things. You never thought a mushroom could be a recycler, did you? All right, so plants. We've talked so much about plants and plant cells. Multicellular, they make their own food. They can be vascular or non-vascular. We didn't really talk about this one. Vascular means it has roots and stems. A non-vascular plant doesn't have roots, stems, or leaves. If you've ever seen Spanish moss hanging from a tree, Spanish moss is a non-vascular plant. It doesn't have roots. It actually absorbs water from the air. So plants are their own kingdom of life. And then we have animalia, or animals. These guys consume food. They can be herbivores, carnivores, or omnivores. So they can eat plants, meat, or both. They can adapt to their environment. That's the most important thing. That's the most important thing about this group here, is that they can adapt to their environment. So we have some animals that hibernate because they're not designed to withstand the cold temperatures. They've adapted. Humans, we know that we can't stand, our bodies can't take cold temperatures either very much. We adapt by putting a coat on. It's a little different, but we can adapt. We can kind of sense our surroundings and do what we need to make sure that we survive. Then they can be vertebrates or invertebrates. And remember, those two words are just meaning, they're talking about the backbone. Does it have a backbone or does it not have a backbone? So those are the 6 kingdoms of life. Once you get these into your notebook, I would like for you to take a moment, and these pages are so slick, my little Post-it notes don't stick to them very well. All right, Okay. So in this little science book, on mine it's page 18. Yours might be something different. But it actually talks about the 6 kingdoms of life. And it goes through and it shows you kingdom Archaebacteria. And it shows you some of the pictures here of that. It talks about kingdom Eubacteria. It talks about some of the good things and bad things that found in Eubacteria. It talks about Protistas, and it has some really cool pictures as well. Amoebas are Protista. If you've ever seen pictures of amoebas, little blobs. And this is another one here. Giardia, I believe that's how you pronounce it, but I know that this is a sickness that you can get from drinking water in remote places where the water is not clean. This can make you super, super sick. It can cause you to have major stomach issues, and usually you do have to get to the doctor and get some medicine to solve the problem. But anyway, so this is a Protista. So just lots of really, really neat pictures in here. They actually split Protistas up into several groups. They split them into plant-like Protistas, fungus-like Protistas, and then they also, oops, I must have missed the one where they separated and where it looks, animal-like, right there. So animal-like Protistas. So within the Protista family, they split it into 3 different areas. So take a look at those. Some of these pictures are pretty gruesome. Then they go into Kingdom Fungi, and they show you some of the different fungi beyond mushrooms. I know I keep using the example of mushroom, but there's lots more things than just mushrooms. Kingdom Plantae, depending on who says it. We've talked lots about that one. And then the Kingdom Animalia, talking about that one. And they split that into invertebrates and vertebrates. So take a look at that, please, before we come back together next week. I do also want to make a note to you that on the MIC for today, and this is my copy of my MIC is sort of all colored over here, you do have an OLS lesson. Unit 6, Lesson 2 is what you're looking at in OLS. And then you do have a USA Test Prep. It's a video about classification. So please make sure that you take care of those. The grading cycle does end on Friday, which is tomorrow. So please, if at all possible, try and get this done so that I can go ahead and run grades for tomorrow. You do also have an OLS Unit 6, Lesson 3 for tomorrow. So try and get that one in as well tomorrow. And that way when I pull grades, I'll have everything completed. Now, I'm stopping a little bit earlier than I did on Tuesday to give you time to go and do those 2 things. So, you need to do OLS Unit 6, Lesson 2, and USA Test Prep 921. It should say Science 921. So those are your assignments for the day. Then make sure you try and find this book and take a peek through the book. It actually has some really cool pictures in it. Alrighty, guys. I hope you all have a great weekend. Hopefully all of your map testing is finished. And I will see you back in class on next Tuesday. So have a great weekend, and I will see you later, alligators. Bye.